morning. The time is now 10:30, and I call the June 4, 2026 Planning Board meeting to order. We have the following board members with us today. Commissioner Gerardo.
Good morning, and on behalf of the Planning Board, we want to apologize for the lateness, but we had some business to take care of earlier this morning. So I know it was set for 10, but thank you, and we just apologize to the citizens.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Jenkins.
Good morning.
Commissioner Jenkins is joining us virtually, and I'm Vice Chair Okoye. We'll now move forward to the business at hand. Please note that the deadline for all participant pre-registration and for all submission of materials and exhibit was 12 noon on Tuesday before the Planning Board meeting. The order of cases for today's meeting is as follows. Items 2, 4, 5, and 6. The first item on the agenda is item 2, draft minutes of May 28, 2026.
Commissioner Coy, I move that we adopt the minutes from the previous meetings.
I second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Gerardo and second by Commissioner Jenkins. I'll now call the roll. Commissioner Gerardo?
Aye.
Commissioner Jenkins?
But I.
And I vote aye as well. The ayes have it. We'll now move to the consent agenda. Is there anyone who wishes to oppose the staff's recommendation of the consent agenda items? Is there any board member who wishes to discuss these items? I see none. We'll look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Commissioner Coy, I move that we take the move adoption of the consent agenda on items 4A and 4B, with 4D and 4E having been removed this morning.
I second.
We have the motion by Commissioner Gerardo and second by Commissioner Jenkins. I will now call the roll. Commissioner Gerardo?
I vote aye.
Commissioner Jenkins?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The ayes have it. We'll now move to the regular agenda items. The first item on the agenda, item 5, detailed site plan TSP-25002 Metro City. We'll now hear from staff who will present this item. I will now open it.
Good morning, Mr. Vice Chair and members of the Planning Board. For the record, I'm Meng San with the Urban Design section. Item number 5 is detailed site plan DSP-25002 for Metro City. This detailed site plan is for phase 1 of a mixed-use project consisting of 72 single-family attached dwelling units, 240 multi-family dwelling units for seniors, and a 195-bed assisted living facility. This property is located within the residential multifamily 48 zone. However, the case is being reviewed and under the prior zoning ordinance. Under the prior zoning ordinance, the property was designated within the mixed-use transportation-oriented and development district overlay zones. The property is located on the west side of Addison Road South and east side of Rollins Avenue, approximately 4,000 feet southwest of the intersections of MD 214 and Addison Road South. As a matter of housekeeping, staff received applicant Exhibit 1 prior to Tuesday noon deadline. Applicant Exhibit 1 request to eliminate Condition 1A, which required the applicant to provide details for interior recreational facilities for senior living buildings and assisted living facility. Since the mandatory parkland dedication required by the subdivision regulation is met through dedicating parkland on site, those private indoor recreational facilities details can be determined at the time of permit review. Staff are in agreement with the request. Based on evaluation and analysis, Urban Design staff recommend that the Planning Board adopt the findings of this report and approve detailed site plan DSP-25002 and Type 2 Tree Conservation Plan TCP2-2026-0018, subject to the recommended conditions of approval within the technical staff report as modified by applicant's Exhibit 1. This concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the staff, Madam Board?
I have none.
I see none. We'll hear from the applicant's attorney.
Scott, we need to swear you in. Do you have anybody else who will be speaking on this today?
Yes, sir. Just to be on the safe side, we probably should swear in the applicant's team.
Anybody wishing to also speak, please stand. Raise your right hand if you can stand. And do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chairman Okoye, members of the Planning Board, and staff. For the record, my name is Tracy Scudder, and I am with the law firm Reese Broom with offices at 163 Waterfront Street at National Harbor. This morning, I have the pleasure of representing Metro City LLC, the developer and owner of the properties that comprise the subject detailed site plan application, DSP 250002, that is before you this morning. I would like to start by thanking staff for their review of this case and for the presentation we just heard. This morning, I am joined by our core team members, some of whom have joined virtually and some are here in person. Representatives from Metro City LLC are present, Andrew Interdonato and Mr. Neil Bobbis. The applicant's civil engineering team from CBDI are also here, Masood Tawhidi and Milton Perez. Ms. Tanika Felder is the project architect, and she is from the Felder Group. The applicant's civil traffic engineer is Mike Linhart, and I believe he's joined virtually. He's with Linhart Traffic. And we also have NVR here, represented by Michael Cranius and Matthew McHale. As staff just presented, this project was previously approved under DSP 20012 on February 11th, 2022. And before that, of course, the property was approved for rezoning under the conceptual site plan application, went through subdivision, and again received detailed site plan approval. All of the prior applications were approved with wide support from the surrounding community. This particular DSP application is a new application that had to be processed for two reasons. One, to receive a new validity period for the detailed site plan. The prior DSP that was approved for this project, DSP 200012, expired. So this is essentially the same plan this board approved previously. Number two, we're coming back to update the architecture for the townhomes. There have been some minor adjustments to these homes. I would like to just quickly note some items that have also been accomplished since the approval of the DSP 200012 in 2022 that demonstrate the project's continued progression. There was a water sewer category change application approved on October 18th, 2023. The applicant also successfully negotiated with the adjacent property owners regarding the required off-site easements and rights-of-way for improving Rollins Avenue. The property address assignments and tax ID numbers have been obtained. The HOA documents have been processed, and the record plats were approved and recorded on June 25th, 2024. As staff may have noted, Metro City is a two-phased development project. Phase 1 is on the Rollins Avenue side and will include approximately 507 residential units with the development of 4 parcels, those being parcels A, G, H, and I, which will include a mixture of 72 high-quality townhomes with square footages between 1951 and 2307 square feet of finished space with options to add space, and there are 435 assisted living and elderly housing units. We believe this development will appeal to many working professionals in the region who desire to be located within walking distance of a metro station, as well as seniors. As I mentioned earlier, the DSP application that is before you updates the 72 previously approved townhouses. The applicant has entered into an agreement with NVR to construct the 72 townhomes at Metro City, and the 72 townhouse lots have been sold to NVR. So this new DSP is substituting the previously approved models for the new NVR models. The townhomes will still be 3 to 4 stories with 1 to 2 car front loaded garages. And as part of this DSP application, the applicant is also updating the NRI and stormwater management plan. We are excited that this project is moving forward. The townhomes, which are part of phase 1, are anticipated to be under construction in the coming months. The conceptual architecture has been completed for these homes. The technical plans will be produced under the upcoming building permit. The applicant has had an opportunity to review the technical staff report and concurs with the findings and conditions of the report. The applicant is respectfully requesting that this board approve the Alternative Development District Overlay Zone standards, that being the standard under site design S3 for building, siting, and setbacks. And then also we are asking approval of DSP 25002 and the Type 2 Tree Conservation Plan for Metro City Phase 1. And I should just mention there is one amendment to the conditions, condition the applicant has requested, as staff explained and agreed with. The applicant has requested one amendment to delete condition 1A of the technical staff report. So this concludes my presentation. Thank you, and we're happy to answer any questions at this time.
All right, thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to, for your record, I'd like to correct that. I am not the chairman, I am the vice chair, just so it can be corrected in your record.
Thank you.
And any questions from?
I have a question. Scotty, thank you. An issue that former Commissioner Dorner always brought up, and I think it's a good one, is that when you're constructing the outside frames of the doors, that the frame would be large enough that they can install a ring or some other type of security camera. Do we know what the provision is going to be with that?
NVR, could one of you address that question?
Is the question about first?
Good morning, everyone. Matt McHale, Division Manager for Ryan Homes that oversees this area. So the question, just to clarify, was will there be space next to the door for something like a ring doorbell or similar?
But the frame, usually they install them on the frame, the outside frame, something where the tenants or the owners will be able to install a security camera at the front door.
So a security
like a
ring. There should be space.
Or simply say
there should be something of that size. That doesn't require a ton of space, and that's pretty common. If you drive through any development that we've got actively under construction, you'll see a certain percentage of the homeowners choose to do that. So there would be space there.
Okay, good enough. All right, thank you. And the other question I have, I see that you're going to have dog waste stations. Is there going to be any provision for the dog owners to have water along the dog waste stations?
Yes, sir. There is one dog watering station and along the Cabin Branch Trail.
Okay, thank you.
I have no further questions. One question that I have, just for clarity, we've had issues where we approved a lot of things and we don't see shovels on the ground. But I was happy to hear when you said that you're breaking ground in a few months. Do you have a date?
I think I overheard earlier someone say September. September, October.
Get his name.
Do you want to come up, Mr. Integrado?
Hi, Mr. Vice Chairman and members. We're looking at either September or October of this year to physically start the site grading for the project. So we're at the point where hopefully we get an approved detailed site plan and we can continue with our technical engineering with that goal in mind. Thank you very much.
And that's phase one.
Pardon me?
That's phase one, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for the attorney from the planning board?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I will now take the testimonies from those who have signed up to speak on this item. Any testimonies? All right, the hearing is now closed. Thank you very much, Attorney. I appreciate you. All right, board members, what's your pleasure?
Commissioner Coy, I move that the commission adopt the staff findings and approve DSP TCP 2-2026-0018, subject to the recommendations of the staff, the conditions as is set forth in the staff report, and is further modified by applicant's exhibit number 1.
I second.
And just to correct, you approved the DSP as well, right? With
Yes.
your motion?
I said DSP 25002 and TCP 2026
Thank you.
-0018.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Gerardo and a second by Commissioner Jenkins. I'll now call the roll. Commissioner Gerardo,
I vote aye.
Commissioner Jenkins,
Aye.
and I vote aye as well.
Thank you all very much. Have a great one.
The next item on the agenda is item number 6, Community Planning Division, Missing Meadow Housing Study Briefing. We will now hear from staff.
Good morning, Planning Board members. Andrea Gillis for the record. I am the Chief of the Community Planning Division. It is my pleasure to introduce the team that has been working very diligently for about a year and a half on this missing middle housing study. And as we all know, housing has been a huge topic of conversation in the county and across the region. And this study starts to open up further the conversation about how we think about housing in Prince George's County, the different ways that we can think about housing in Prince George's County. I do want to assure everyone that this is something that is happening nationally. It is not just something that's happening here in a bubble in Prince George's County. These are issues that are being discussed nationally. So we're very fortunate at this time and timely that we have this opportunity to present this study. I am here to introduce the project team, and then Karen and John will also introduce the consultants on this project. I will say we've been very lucky to have the consultants on this are the ones who actually literally wrote the book on missing middle housing. So the project team has been led by Josephine Salva-Kumar, and then we have Karen Moreau, who is the project manager, and John Parks, who is also one of the project managers. So with that, I will hand it over to staff. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning again for the record. John Parks, I'm the Deputy Project Manager for the Missing Middle Housing Study.
Good morning. For the record, my name is Karen Moreau. I'm the project manager for the Missing Middle Housing Study. I want to thank you for the opportunity for letting us giving you this briefing today. As Andrea mentioned, this study represents a year-long effort by our team and the consultant team of Opticos and AECOM. The study's ground truths and data and analysis, research, engagement, and national and local expertise. It offers a new paradigm for housing and the opportunity for the planning board to weigh as we develop an equitable and inclusive policy in housing to benefit the diverse needs of Prince Georgians. I want to thank my deputy project manager for his excellent support on this project, our leadership in CPD and the leadership in the planning department for recognizing the need for this study and allowing it to go forth. So with that, I'd like to introduce the presenter from Opticos today, Tony Perez.
Thank you, Karen. Good morning, Planning Board and members of the community. Is the volume okay? Can you hear me fine? Great, thank you. Good morning to you, and thank you for having us. Thank you very much for this opportunity to present our team's study on missing middle housing for Prince George's County. I'm here with Opticos Design and other team members from Opticos, including Cecilia Kim, Planning Manager, and Roger Foreman, Senior Designer. Also here is Sarah Richards from AECOM, who's been instrumental in supporting the study through demographic and economic analyses, as well as case studies. We've been working closely with Karen and John and Josephine Sibylla Kamar of the Prince George's County Planning Department, and excited to be here with you today. Next slide, please. So today we're going to be talking about what missing middle housing is, why we're talking about it at all, our study, and then key recommendations followed by next steps presented by planning staff. Next slide, please. So missing middle housing is another set of housing choices that can offer more housing opportunities for the county, and we have many best practices to share with you today for how to include them in Prince George's County. Next slide. Many of us have personal stories about missing middle housing, maybe don't really know it that way because we didn't grow up with that term. But here's a woman in Dan Perolich's hometown in Nebraska, Dan Perolich being the person who coined this phrase and who wrote the book on missing middle housing in our office. This woman rented one of the two units you can see in this building. You see there are two units by those two meters to the right of her. And she lived in one and rented the other and made a little income where otherwise, if she lived just in a single-family house, she might not. Dan himself lived in 3 different eightplexes in his first years after college. After college, Dan, with his parents, bought a duplex to help his sister, a teacher, and give her a place to live and provide extra income for the family. I myself lived in a town of 1,000, and even in that small town, we had missing middle housing on my block. 2 lots away, the Rodriguez family lived in the upper unit, and they rented the ground floor unit to a small family. This type of housing provides the needed choices to meet the varying needs of people at different stages of life and income levels. It's also a key factor in what makes the community so walkable and vibrant and supportive of local small businesses. Next slide. So defining missing middle housing. There are a lot of people talking about it across the country, and we'd like to just clarify what we mean by it. In 2010, Dan Perolich observed that there's a range of housing choices that used to be part of neighborhoods until the 1940s. As you see in the middle of the diagram, there are at least 7 types. But after the 1940s, for a variety of reasons, cities and counties across the U.S. stopped allowing these types. The result is that for over 80 years now, housing choices are primarily single-unit houses, as you see on the left of the diagram, or mid-rise apartments on the right side of the diagram. And simply put, there are 3 key factors for missing middle housing. Missing middle housing is house-scale buildings with multiple units in walkable neighborhoods. Typical multifamily development is often 1, sometimes 2, and rarely all 3. Missing middle housing is always all 3. Now I'll turn it over to Sarah from AECOM to walk you through some of the economic and demographic information. Sarah?
Thank you, Tony. Can we go to the next slide, please? So it's really important to understand the distinction between missing middle and affordable housing. So as Tony just mentioned, missing middle housing refers to a specific physical building typology, like the diagram, duplexes, triplexes, townhomes, cottage courts. The term affordable is a financial metric referring to how much housing costs relative to area median income. You may have heard it referred to as AMI. So the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development kind of sets this standard. And according to U.S. HUD, housing ceases to be affordable when monthly housing costs exceed 30% of monthly income. So there's a lot of overlap here. You can have affordable missing middle housing. In fact, a lot of missing middle housing, because it is smaller scale, is termed naturally affordable. So, it might be older. It wasn't necessarily built as a subsidized effort, but it is naturally affordable because it's smaller. Perhaps it has, fewer upgrades, but it's still quite livable and habitable. You can have market rate missing middle housing, purpose-built missing middle housing that is rented or sold at market rates, not as affordable housing. So I think it's really important to make that distinction, and we're happy to answer any questions about that during the Q&A period. But I want to go ahead and if we can move to the next slide. We want to talk a little bit about the market for missing middle housing. So it's actually much more diverse and wide-ranging than I think a lot of people realize. So, it can include young professionals, small families, empty nesters, single people of all ages. People choose missing middle housing for a wide range of reasons. Some of it's preference. Some people just prefer a smaller footprint. Cost is definitely a factor. Location, if it's close to transit, close to amenities, people might choose to live in a smaller unit to be able to access those things. There's also physical limitations. So, like the example that Tony just mentioned, I also have a personal story. My mother is a perfect example. She's 75, and we recently moved her out of the 2-story, 4-bedroom home that I grew up in because she simply couldn't physically manage a house and yard. And now she's on a single level 2-bedroom apartment and perfectly happy. We tried to tell her she would be happy, but she didn't believe us. So, there's all kinds of different reasons why people might choose to live in missing middle housing. So if we could move to the next slide. Through this study, we attempted to quantify what is the gap in Prince George's County of this specific product type. So, we use data from the American Community and American Housing Survey, which you may be familiar with, to try and understand, on a basic level, particularly as the county continues to grow, what is the gap in this particular product type? So the way we defined it for our analysis was units within a 2 to 9 unit structure. So in order to calculate this, we had to understand, okay, what is current supply of missing middle housing in Prince George's County? And then what would the future supply be? And we picked 2045 because the regional population and household forecasts use that same metric. So we wanted to benchmark to 2045. So again, in order to kind of understand supply, the county currently has about 36,000 units in these 2 to 9 unit structures, which is about 10% of the county's total housing supply. So to project supply, we just made a basic assumption that the county would continue to add housing in that category at the same rate, which has been since 2013 about 1% a year. So that would result in a little over 8,000 additional units between now and 2045 that meet that missing middle definition. So then we had to define what the market demand would be. And again, this is based on available data. It's based on, as Karen mentioned, we had a really great stakeholder engagement effort associated with this. And so we talked to a lot of folks, and I think we were able to ground truth some of this data. So we simply defined our market as 1 to 2 person households, so small households. Now, we felt like that's about 60% of county households actually are 1 to 2 person, which might surprise you. We felt like it was making kind of too much of an assumption to assume that all those households want missing middle. There are lots of reasons why people might want larger housing, even if they're only in 1 to 2 person households. So we thought a conservative estimate would be to cut that in half. Assume half of that 1 to 2 person household population would like to live in a missing middle product type. So projecting that forward, using two different methods. So one was the MW, the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments forecast of population growth, household growth. That was a little bit more conservative. So that would result in a deficit of around 12,000 units of this product type in Prince George's County by 2045. We also wanted to look at recent trends, and obviously, we all wish we had a crystal ball, but we don't. So that's one reason we do two forecast methods, right? So if the county actually continues to add households at the same rate as it has since 2013, that would result in almost 25,000 units, a deficit of missing middle housing. So again, I mentioned, the county continues to add missing middle housing at the same rate, which is the low 1% per year rate. This is kind of the range that we're looking at. So this is a pretty big deficit of this product type. So I think let's go to the next slide. And this is to kind of better define, we were talking about affordability and missing middle housing. So you all may have heard this term housing cost burden before. So I mentioned the way the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, U.S. HUD, defines affordability is, no more than 30% of monthly income, right, is spent on housing costs. Once it starts to exceed that, those households are considered cost burden. So we actually looked at current Prince George's County households, how many of them approximately are spending more than 30% of their income on housing. So when we split it into owners and renters, the renter population by proportion had a much larger housing cost burden, 72%. But overall, including homeowners and renters, you're still talking about a third of the county. So housing cost is a challenge. A lack of diverse types of housing is a challenge for Prince George's County. And as I said, we saw this in the data. We also ground truth this in our discussion with stakeholders. Next slide, please. So again, to Tony's point, this is why we call it missing, right? It's a product type that actually is in pretty high demand. But the supply, and this is not just a Prince George's County problem, I'm sure Maryland as a whole, Virginia, the Mid-Atlantic, this is chronically undersupplied for all types of reasons. But that's one reason, there was the impetus for this study because the county understood that this was a challenge. So I think next slide, please. And
yeah, thank you, Sarah.
To you, Tony.
Yeah, so as the need for more housing choices increases, some of us are starting to trade the amenity of space for the amenity of place. For example, I know several empty nesters in a house too large for the two of them, but where they live, their choices for a smaller place to live aren't appealing. So they're occupying a house that a growing family could use, but because they don't have nearby choices that appeal to them, they can't leave and put their house on the market. Next slide. Next slide, please. Thanks. So a 2017 survey by the National Association of Realtors found that half of those interviewed would rather live in an apartment, condo, or townhome if they could easily walk to shops and food, amenities, and a walkable neighborhood. In addition, 3/4 of those interviewed said they'd be willing to pay more for such a place. This is great news as it aligns with a major goal of the Prince George's County and the Planning Board to support local retail restaurants, healthy food options, and bringing more businesses to local shops. Missing middle housing can support this goal by providing neighborhood centers, main streets, and downtowns with additional customers living in house-scale buildings that fit well in existing neighborhoods. Of course, it's important to align opportunity areas with planned 2035 centers, transit, and existing infrastructure. Next slide. But you might be asking yourself, isn't missing middle housing already allowed in the county? Great question. It is in some zones, but the allowed density or other standards end up not allowing more than a duplex or a townhouse. In other zones, it is not allowed at all. for example, in RE, RR, RSF 95, and RSF 65. In other zones, it's allowed, but so are tall and large buildings. And in those zones, it's likely that the land is valued assuming tall and large buildings and not missing middle, even if it's allowed. So the tall and large buildings are likely what would be built. Next slide. By the way, can you go back to that slide for 1 second, please? Thank you. So the image on the right is an image of a project that our office is building through a developer in Erie, Pennsylvania. And I call it out to your attention because this idea of scale and size we're going to talk about a lot here coming up. And you can see the buildings that are highlighted in the center of the slide are similar or equal to the same size of houses in the neighborhood. Next slide. So, we're going to talk now about defining it again a little closer and why it's important. Next slide. So, as shown earlier, in 2010, Dan Perlich observed that there are at least 7 housing choices that used to be part of these neighborhoods until the 1940s. But as I mentioned, after the 40s, for a variety of reasons, cities and counties across the U.S. stopped allowing these types. And for now, over 80 years, we've really been focusing on single-unit houses or mid-rise apartments. And to again, emphasize a simple way that we have found to communicate this idea without all these details, but to be able to talk about it simply with one another, I point your attention to the bottom of the slide in that blue area, house-scale buildings with multiple units in walkable neighborhoods. And again, we're comparing it with multifamily development. Typical multifamily development is usually just 1 or 2 of these and rarely all 3, and missing middle is always all 3. Next slide. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, this is not a new idea. Here are 2 pages from a Sears catalog from the 1910s that offered plans and materials custom fit to your lot width. And the materials that were delivered to your local train station, and you and your carpenter would pick them up and then build it per the plans that were provided. And it's important to note that these choices existed before current zoning and building barriers that now limit production all across the United States. As an example, your older communities inside the 495 or communities adjacent to DC have really good examples of these house-scale buildings. Next slide. Next slide. Thanks. You have to look closely to notice that there are multiple units. One of the things that missing middle buildings, new ones, need to pass the test of is that they generally need to look like a house that just happens to have more than 1 unit. And when you look at the doors, the mailboxes, the gas meters, you'll know. But before that, it should look like a 1-unit house. Next slide. The building in the photo on the left is house scale because it's 2 stories and as wide as a typical house. It happens to include 4 units, but until you know that, it looks like a house. The size and massing have everything to do with that. In the diagram on the right, you see that we recommend missing middle buildings not be wider than a certain distance, in this case 55 feet, or longer than a certain distance, 65 feet in this case. You can further customize these numbers to your needs, but at some point, the width and length of a typical house, and I'm not talking about a pro sports player's house, just a typical house, that width and length can be identified. That's what you want to use to define high scale in your area so that new buildings truly fit in existing neighborhoods. Next slide. Being clear about house scale size is really important. Here's an example of 2 residential buildings that offer nice housing opportunities, but the building on the right is not house scale. Why? Because it's 3 stories and because it's longer than a typical house in a neighborhood. Next slide. Now I'd like to walk you through 7 missing middle types. The first one is the duplex side-by-side. And by the way, these are not all intended for every neighborhood, but some can work in any neighborhood. This first one, side-by-side, is just as its name suggests, 2 units side-by-side, but within the massing of 1 house overall. Next slide. And again, going back to this single house scale idea, it's very important to include side-by-side units, in this case, within the massing of one house, because as you can see, aside from the building on the left looking like a fire station and not a duplex, the design emphasizes the two units through its massing, while the building on the right actually has the massing of one house, even though it includes the two side-by-side units. Next slide. And this is the duplex stack, one flat above the other, again in the massing of one house. Next slide. And the cottage court. This is one of my favorites because it's a great example of the small unit idea of missing middle housing while organizing those small units around a garden that opens to the street and can be enjoyed by pedestrians and cyclists. Next slide. The fourplex has 4 flats, 2 on each floor, all within the massing of a house. Next slide. The townhouse in missing middle housing is a 2-story version of what you often see around the country, and particularly in your area. We understand that there are many townhouses being built taller than this, and those are certainly choices. But the missing middle housing townhouse is different because it fits well in existing neighborhoods by it being no more than 2 stories, not wider than a large house. That translates to about 3 to 4 units in a row at most. This is how design can deliver the townhouse while staying house scale. Also, notice that there are no garage doors on the front of any of these examples, again, emphasizing the house scale, size, and appearance from the street. Next slide. The courtyard is a larger version of the cottage court, with its garden also opening out to the street while presenting house scale massing. Next slide. And the largest of the missing middle types is a multiplex, usually with 6 to 10, maybe 12 units, but never larger than a large house. Again, you might, if you're hearing this for the first time, you might think of a large house and think of an NBA player's house or an NFL player's house. We are not talking about that as a large house. It's something that you can define. By the way, the building on the bottom right is a brand new building, 1.5 years, 2 years old, in a project we designed in Nebraska. Next slide. So what happens when 3 to 4 stories are needed, when 2 stories of missing middle housing aren't enough for the location or the market? That's when upper missing middle housing is a better fit. Upper missing middle housing is sometimes wider than missing middle housing, but it's taller. It's 3 to 4 stories and goes deeper into more lot coverage. Upper missing middle housing is a great fit for lots near high quality transit where the need for a car is very low. Next slide. Sometimes upper missing middle housing can be a triple decker or a 3-flat, as you can see in these examples, or it can be a 3 to 4 story multiplex. It's not for everywhere, but it's available to help where it makes sense in Prince George's County. Next slide. Now we'd like to talk about the study that we did and prepared for you. This study applied to all of Prince George's County, but focused on areas near transit, jobs, and other amenities. Next slide. We kicked off the process by interviewing a wide variety of stakeholders organized by Karen and John in a total of 6 virtual focus group interviews. A preliminary stakeholder list of approximately 100 interviewees was compiled from various industry groups with expertise in housing and development, representatives of local neighborhoods, businesses and organizations, and pertinent county departments. A total of 31 interviewees from this list participated in focus group interviews. After reviewing their input, several common themes emerged, shown on the screen. And just in case it's not easy to read from the back of the room, I'll just read them very quickly. Reforming zoning and policy to expand housing choices and reach more of the market. Streamline the entitlement process to reduce financial risk for builders. Cultivate relationships with council members, municipal leadership, and small-scale developers. Build community support by emphasizing benefits and connections to the community. Focus efforts in best areas suited to missing middle housing. Introduce incentives and reforms to make development projects more affordable. And work with other departments to reduce obstacles from infrastructure and environmental constraints. Next slide. We then evaluated the potential for missing middle housing by analyzing various types of locations where it could fit well. And you see the criteria that we used to guide this analysis. This analysis, it's on the right there of the screen. This analysis helped us understand the variety of physical contexts and which types of missing middle housing could work well in those locations. It's important to note that our approach is to focus where it should be considered in some of the existing zones and not treat it as a county-wide blanket approach to all parcels. Next slide. So where should it be considered? Using the criteria, our analysis highlights opportunity areas in light blue on the left of your screen as those areas where missing middle housing is recommended and should be allowed. In the center of the screen, you see where the criteria overlap and produce a heat map of sorts showing focus areas. These areas are a subset of the opportunity areas, and these focus areas are especially suited for missing middle housing. The pink areas are outside of the growth boundary and are not recommended. On the right-hand side of the screen is an analysis of how the current zoning supports missing middle housing or not. The tan are areas where missing middle housing is not currently supported by current zoning. Orange are areas where modifications are needed to support missing middle housing. And purple are areas where the allowed intensity, the height, the density are too high for missing middle housing. I was mentioning that large buildings are allowed and large buildings would likely be built in these areas. Next slide. So then we visualize what missing middle housing could look like on specific lots. And here's an illustrative site visualization we prepared to demonstrate how it could fit and what it might look like on an existing publicly owned parcel in Riverdale, identified for us by the community. This shows 1 duplex and 2 triplexes for a total of 8 units offering home ownership opportunities. Next slide. Here's another illustrative example on a different site, one across from Purple Line Transit Station. This one shows how the site could start with 3 to 4 story upper missing middle along Riverdale Road and then transition to smaller buildings using 2-story missing middle housing. And this strategy can be applied to other large sites where higher intensity is expected along a corridor and where there's also a need to transition to smaller, lower intensity neighborhoods nearby. These examples also offer home ownership opportunities. Next slide. And here's a visualization of what that example might look like, showing the taller upper missing middle buildings along Riverdale Road, while 2-story missing middle buildings serve as a transition to adjacent neighborhoods. Next slide. So changing industry standards. Over the course of the last 8 years, we've set up financial systems, planning, policy, and development industry with single-family detached houses in mind. At the other hand, we have 5, 6, and 7+ story condos and apartment buildings. But in the last couple of decades, we've focused on how to deliver that bigger scale housing and make it economically viable. However, there isn't much in between these two ends of the housing spectrum, which we're talking about with missing middle housing. Next slide. So we have a total of 35 recommendations in the study in 6 topic areas. And today, we're highlighting a few of those recommendations. And the first one on the next slide I'd like to get to is removing density limits for single-family and missing middle housing. The building on the left is 3 stories tall and longer than can be seen on the photo. The building on the right is a 2-story house-scale 5-plex. These buildings could not be more different, yet they calculate to nearly the identical same density numerically. The big 3-story building is 30 to the acre, the 5-plex is 29 to the acre. This is an example of why relying on density does not get at the whole picture. In our recommendation, we recommend using intended physical form as a clear guide to what the county desires for new housing. Next slide. Calibrating standards to the desired outcomes. It's important to make sure that your standards deliver buildings that truly fit in existing neighborhoods. Measuring existing buildings and using that information is key. You can see avoiding outcomes like the one on the left are not just about words and numbers. It's really about getting the words and numbers to match up with the outcomes that you're trying to fit these buildings in. in existing neighborhoods. Next slide. Evening the playing field is very important also. How do we do that? And why do we do that? Most of our regulations are written to incentivize a single-family house, and we need to even the playing field for middle housing. Single-family homes and middle housing are not on the level playing field in most American cities, and most missing middle projects typically have to overcome the list on the screen. Higher impact fees, complex processes, higher building costs per square foot, because typical multifamily developments are a lot larger projects than missing middle projects. Usually more parking, lack of developer experience with this new type again after 80 years and not being allowed. And so it's very important to not just allow it, but to encourage it and incentivize it through your standards and fee systems and processing. Next slide. A key barrier to feasibility, financial feasibility, is the cost of construction. The International Building Code, or IBC, treats 3 or more units the same as larger buildings with many more units. This is an important barrier to address because we're seeing this translate in our projects to about 25 to 50% more cost in terms of plumbing, electrical, fire separation, plant preparation, additional inspections. Larger apartment projects can absorb this, but for small missing middle projects, this is difficult to absorb and still try to be financially feasible. I want to be very clear. We are not talking about reducing life safety considerations. We're talking about achieving life safety in these small missing middle buildings while right-sizing requirements and reducing costs. And we're seeing this getting national attention because cities and counties have found that even if they address the other barriers, these costs are still enough of an obstacle to missing middle implementation. We are now seeing jurisdictions adjust their International Residential Code, or IRC, to allow up to 4 to 6 units instead of the current maximum of 2. And the ones with most progress across the country are here on the screen. And it's interesting that Tennessee was able to find a compromise to get to this change in their IRC by going back to the size of missing middle buildings. They revised their definition of this category of buildings to essentially describe what I've been talking to you about today, house scale. Their definition doesn't say house scale, but when you read it, that's what it's essentially talking about. Next slide. Facilitating development of publicly owned land. Often, due to the low number of developers currently experienced with missing middle housing, pilot projects are often helpful to demonstrate how these housing choices can truly fit well and be a proof of concept for a wide variety of stakeholders or skeptics or maybe interested people on the sidelines. So county-owned parcels are a great opportunity to get partners and staff who are on the same page and want to see this work. Next slide. Thank you to the task force on streamlining the processes and their work so far. We echo their support for simplifying site plan review processes and providing expedited timelines for missing middle plan reviews to reduce permitting time and holding costs. This will effectively improve predictability and reduce holding costs for developers with a smaller financial outlay from the public sector, if any at all. The site plan review process should mirror the process for the construction of single-family detached housing. After all, missing middle is the same size as single-family houses. Next slide. One way that cities have started to incentivize missing middle is through pre-approved plans. In South Bend, Indiana, which has a weak market and low land values, they've found and they have a lot of vacant infill parcels. The zoning code removed the existing regulatory barriers, but the cost to build and new units was still really tough to pencil out and make feasible. But the city is seeing missing middle happen through the pre-approved building plans for cottages, carriage houses, and duplexes. A tax abatement program for new home construction citywide, program for the cost of sewer hookups for new infill housing. These 3 incentives have been a key step in encouraging smaller and nonprofit developers to add these missing middle housing types to their portfolio. They've also had a tremendous effort to build up and train a group of local small developers who now meet regularly to share in that progress of lessons learned as more missing middle projects are built. Just recently, City Council approved a developer's plan to do a scattered site development on 37 lots using the pre-approved plans and LIHTC funding. Anything that can be done to promote new construction that is more affordable is welcome. Next slide. At Opticos, instead of custom designing each project like we have historically and like a lot of other offices do, we decided that we needed a more cost-effective and time-efficient way to deliver missing middle housing. So we created a system to make our own missing middle catalog called the Missing Middle Neighborhood Kit. Through this kit, you can get up to an 8+ delivered through full construction documents stamped by the architect. By eliminating the need to create the plans and go through necessary reviews, the pre-approved plans reduce soft costs and speed the planning and permit process to deliver housing. Next slide. It's really important to launch a marketing campaign that focuses on the benefits of missing middle housing in a relatable way, such as providing needed housing to allow current aging residents or young graduates to stay in their communities and live closer to extended family. In effect, this campaign could quickly build support and awareness of the rationale for local missing middle housing development. It's important to frame missing middle housing as a pressing and necessary way to accommodate future growth and support expanded housing choices for existing residents. I just want to mention, we've been part of housing forums across the country where the main speakers in such a campaign were major employers, and they wanted to make everyone aware that they needed housing for current and new employees. And often it's perceived that somehow this is just developers who wanting to do this. But the employers are often the biggest ones that need the housing besides the people who need to live in it themselves. And another important factor is that major employers make is that often their employers are commuting long distances, adding to regional traffic. And by providing more housing locally, that regional traffic would be removed from the system. Next slide. AARP is a great partner across the U.S. They are very interested in getting more housing choices built for their customers, including me. Here are a few examples where we have studied specific sites for a jurisdiction to test different scenarios and arrive at a project that can be built. And I just want to emphasize how willing of a partner AARP is. They are super easy to work with, super interested in getting more choices built, and they will work with you on one or numerous sites that you have that you're interested in. I'll pass it back to Sarah.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you. So, as Tony just said, developing missing middle housing can be cost prohibitive. And another thing that we heard from our stakeholder discussions is that funding and financing for missing middle housing in Prince George's County and the surrounding areas was hard to come by for many of the reasons that we already discussed. So this recommendation would be to create a publicly owned revolving loan fund, which would offer construction or permanent loans below market rates to incentivize the construction of missing middle housing. This could also be wrapped in with incentivizing affordable housing as well. And Prince George's County's neighbor, Montgomery County, actually recently implemented a very similar loan fund, which is geared specifically towards affordable housing. But again, there's enough overlap that you could actually wrap those together. And this really, offering these lower cost loans could really help incentivize, both larger and smaller scale developers in the community to take another look at this product type and, feel like this is something that's worth investing in. If we could move to the next slide, please. So another approach that takes the previous recommendation that Tony described about developing on publicly owned land, this takes us a step further. So this recommendation is around creating actually like a public asset corporation / community land trust. You may have heard of these before. This would allow the county to take a more active role in implementing missing middle housing in the opportunity areas that were identified by this study. This is something that could be set up by the existing Prince George's County Economic Development Corporation. You could also involve local nonprofits. There's a lot of ways to do this. And again, you can also wrap in affordable housing with missing middle housing as part of this campaign to provide more housing at a variety of price points and typologies across the county. And I will pass it back to Tony.
Thank you, Sarah. So this is our last slide. Thank you for your attention in this long presentation. There's just so much information that we wanted to share with you today. This last slide, I just want to say it's important to remind ourselves and anyone we talk to about this, that this is about carefully adding more house-scale housing choices in ways that fit well in existing neighborhoods, while bringing more customers to help existing and new businesses thrive, reinforcing a neighborhood's amenities and its long-term appeal. Thank you for your attention. We look forward to your questions, and I'll turn it over to staff for next steps.
I'm sorry, real quick. As a planning director, for the record, James Hunt, acting planning director, I do want to go on record to say I really appreciate staff and doing such a great job on this plan. Your partnership with Opticos as well. This is more probably just like Andrea said earlier. This is a topic that is of concern throughout the country. There are, as you all may be aware, in the DMV region, this was raised, and it was a lot of litigation behind this. But I feel like that this presentation today gives a lot of great hope for Prince George's County. It addresses a lot of the concerns that have been raised as well. But I do want to go on record to really thank you, staff, for doing such a fantastic job for getting this done, getting this across the finish line. It shows how much this planning department is a leader in the region and in the country. So I want to thank you all for doing such a great job on getting this done. Thank you.
I'd like to follow up with that comment. I want to thank staff as well as Portico. Mr. Hunt knows that I've been a proponent of 2 and 3 family houses for I don't know how long. My personal experience, I have a personal story as well, Tony, that I grew up in Newark, New Jersey, which had a lot of large single family houses, but they converted it into 2 and 3 family houses. And which I never understood in this county why we did not have more than a 2-family house. I think it's important in 2 respects. It addresses the middle income, but what it also does is it facilitates the purchase of homes. If I'm going to buy a house, I buy a house with 3 families. I live in one and rent out 2, and so that will foster further home ownership. The current system of just building the single family is just simply not sustainable in this economy. So I want to thank you again, and I look forward to seeing some of these changes, especially in the zoning and the housing types. Thank you.
All right, so I want to join my colleagues in thanking you for your immense work and time that you guys put into this. I just want to know how long it will take before you bring the report back to us. You know what the timeline is?
Sure. Currently, the consultants are working on the draft study, which we have reviewed, so there's a little bit back and forth with revisions and editing. And we expect the final study to be out sometime after we give the county council presentation on June 29th. So again, editing, revising, publications, I would say in the next few months we have the final study available.
I do have a suggestion, if you might want to. I have a friend, somebody that I grew up with in New Jersey, in Newark, New Jersey, and he's been doing a lot of the infill. And in the infill, what he's been building are 2 and 3 family homes. So it might be something that you want to study. I mean, he's building them throughout the city because, Newark at times had difficulty with homes being burned out or empty lots. And he's buying these empty slots and he's putting up these 2 and 3 family homes. Might be a good area to look into. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from the staff or from the planning board?
I just had a quick comment and question, and I just want to piggyback off my colleagues. I really appreciated this thorough study and overview. I feel like I learned a lot, and just wanted to quickly ask about the consideration of ADUs. I know there's been a little bit of like change in policy coming down at the state level, and I think eventually may trickle down here. But just want to think about how, or if that has come up in the study, like on a wish list, sort of, right? And like how that could potentially impact the growth of this missing middle for the county.
Thank you for your question, Commissioner Jones. ADUs, accessory dwelling units, are currently under mandate by the state to have a local policy in place by October 2026. And internally, working with the local ADU task force, legislation for that is being drafted. I just want to make sure that the audience understands that ADUs are single units. They're not considered missing middle units, which are, again, the multiple units. However, they are a great tool in the housing affordability toolbox and a great fit for many households all over the region.
And real quick, I want to add that the county, just like Ms. Mira was saying, the county is undertaking a separate study associated with that. This document itself is touching on it, but it's not overstepping the boundaries of it. So we want to make it very clear. The county has their initiative, so we don't want to overstep that role itself. We want them, because there are other aspects related to that, such as the Department of Permitting, Inspections, and Enforcement as well. So we're all involved in that process. However, we're touching on it with this document itself, but don't want to really kind of step into that area because it really overlaps too much. So we're really focused on the missing middle housing right now with this study, but the ADU process is completely different. The county wants to undertake, and so we're participating with that at the same time. That is going on.
That's helpful. Thank you for clarifying.
All right. Any other question? All right. This will conclude the item for today. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
This will conclude the item for today's agenda. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. Earlier, we had a delay, but thanks for your understanding, and see you next week.
Thank y'all.